Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Sahanavavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibhuditam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Pratitam Puranamunina Madhye Mahabharata Bhagavatim Ashtadashaധ്യായിനീം Amba Tvamanusandhava Bhagavad-gīte Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Purāravindāyata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharatataya Purnaha Prajvalido Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Putra Vikrekapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gītāmritaduhe namaha Sarvopanishado gavo Dukta Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Duktam Gītāmritam Mahatya Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadronatata Jayadratha Gandhara-nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashvathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana-vartini Sodivna Khalu Pandavairananadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parasharya Saroja Mamalam Geetartagantotkatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatparayiraharaha Petiyamanam Muda Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Karimala Pradvamsina Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayati Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunindra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapada Kramopanishade Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatina Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam Navidusura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha.
Hari Om. So, Bhagavan uses a very interesting analogy, that of the peepal tree or the Ashwatha tree, to explain samsara, which is the tree of life. and how samsara works. And he says that Ishvara, Bhagavan, is the source of the entire samsara, which has sprung forth from Ishvara and is also nourished by Ishvara. The various activities that branch forth in the samsara, that spread forth in the material world, they can be reformed and readjusted and thereby made into a much more refined kind of actions, which are spiritually more tuned, or rather tune the personality more towards spirituality. So that refinement and readjustment is always possible to become better and better and better. And this is just like pruning the tree branches or the buds, and that in turn helps the tree not only grow, but it makes the tree look a lot more attractive. Similarly, by readjusting and realignment of actions, human beings can not only grow, they look a lot more better also. The leaves and the buds interact with the environment just like the sense organs of the human beings and other beings also interact with the environment. And coming back a full circle, Bhagavan says that the actions or karma bind the person to samsara just like the roots of the tree bind the tree to the ground. And samsara is represented as descending onto the ground, right, and onto the planet Earth. Na rupam asyeha tato labhyate. So this form, Bhagavan says, right, this form that he has described and used the analogy of the Ashwatha tree, that form, the inverted tree, and also the samsara, the tree of life, is not found here. Na rupam asya tato labhyate is not found here. This means that even though we experience even though we go through it, fundamentally in reality, it is all Maya. It is all the play of Maya. Nothing is real. And then he says, Asanga Shastrena Dridena Chitva. Sharpen Dridena, the weapon of non-attachment. Sharpen it, make it stronger. Sharpen the axe, make the weapon stronger. Which weapon? The weapon of non-attachment. And cut the tree. And he says, Parimargitavyam Tatpadam. Once having cut this tree through the weapon of non-attachment, seek that higher goal. Pursue that higher goal. And Bhagavan says, Yasmin Gata Nanivartante Bhuyaha. Reaching which there is no return. The land of no return, so to say. And he says, Prapadye Adyam Purusham. Surrender to that primeval, supreme being. Surrender. Yatha Pravrittihi Prasrita Purani. That being which since time memorial, from which all activities have been springing forth. And what are the qualities that are required to make progress, to walk on this path towards this goal? Nirmana Moha, free from pride and delusion. Jita Sangha Dosha, with the defect of attachment having been conquered. Adhyatma Nitya, always, ever abiding in the self. Vinivritta Kama, turned away from desire. Discipline yourself and turn away from desires. Dvandvair Vimukta, freed from the pairs of opposites. And Bhagavan says, the undeluded, Amudaha, Gachanti, they reach Tat Padam Avyayam, that eternal goal. And having said this context, now Bhagavan describes that goal, what that goal is. We will go to the next verse.
Natad bhasayate suryaha.
Natad bhasayate suryaha.
Na shashanko na pavakaha.
Na shashanko na pavakaha.
Yadgatvana nivartante.
Yadgatvana nivartante.
Tadhama paramam mama.
Tadhama paramam mama.
Natad bhasayate suryaha. Na shashanko na pavakaha. Yadgatvana nivartante. तद्धधाम परमं मम.
My request is that if you have a book, keep it with you and try to chant it in your own mind, along with after Sarika, we can repeat, all of us can repeat. So Bhagavan says, Tad, that which, Suryaha, the sun, na, not, bhasayate, illumines, na, not, shashankaha, the moon, na, not, pavakaha, fire. Gatva, reaching, yad, which, nivartante, they return, na, not. They return not. Tad, that is, mama, my, paramam, supreme, dhama, abode. That which the sun does not illumine, nor the moon, nor the fire, reaching which they do not return. That is my supreme abode. So the sun is essentially a daytime illuminator, and the nighttime illuminator is the moon. And when both are not there, we can get, or we can use fire to illuminate. These are sources of light. Harnessing electricity has given mankind the torch or the bulb. That also is the source of light. And nowadays we have the torch in the mobile phone itself, right? Very, very convenient. Again, a source of light. These are all external agents. But to be able to actually see, in addition to the illuminator, one also requires the eye. You need your own eye, the organ of sight. And in addition to that, you also require the mind intellect, because that's the organ of processing what has been perceived. These are internal agents. It is like saying, we had used that rope and snake example. So in the dark, I think that a rope is the snake. And then I shine the torchlight, I can see that no, it's only a rope and not a snake. But my colleague who's with me, he's still thinking that it's a snake, even though the torchlight is clearly showing. Because the mind is still perceiving the snake, even though visually you can see that it is a rope. Right? So it's important that the internal agent is also tuned for us to be able to see, to behold. In a pitch dark room, we can see nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, we cannot even see our own body, but we feel ourselves. That feeling of I am does not go away anywhere. It is still there, even though everything else is visible. No external agency is required for this awareness of the self. Nothing is required. Not the sun, not the moon, not a torch, nothing. It is self-evident. It is self-sufficient. And that which does not need any agency to shine, that which is self-luminous, swaprakashaha, and that which is self-revealing, the inherent awareness that does not need any support of any other external agency to be revealed. Self-revealing. Swayam aparokshatvam. You experience it. So it is aparoksha jnana. You experience. And Bhagavan says, Tad dhama paramam mama. That is my supreme abode. Dhama also means effulgence. In addition to Dhamma meaning abode, it also means effulgence, bright light. So in that context, that Dhamma, that effulgence is my supreme nature. See, as per science, the universal reality at the end of it all is that darkness or the nothingness in the black hole. And that doesn't it seem quite pessimistic? But as per Sanatana Dharma, which is a lot more optimistic in terms of philosophy, the ultimate reality is the supreme effulgence. Absolutely the opposite. In place of the black hole, we have the pure consciousness, the Satchitananda, the supreme effulgence. When we go into a temple and when they do the arti, normally, especially in the sanctum sanctorum, when you go deep inside, if you can just imagine, there is no other light. They actually switch off all the other lights. And then they have only the arti light with the camphor. That is all that is there. And with that light, they show Bhagavan all over. See, Bhagavan is self-effulgent. Swaprakashaha doesn't need He's illuminating everything else, but we use Aarti to see Bhagavan. Right? Look at the dichotomy and the funniness here, right? And then when we come back home, what do we do to gain that same experience? We close our eyes. We perceive that experience within us. And after some time, when we go deeper, not only do we close our eyes, we close our mind and we close our intellect. And everything is tuned to that one vision. Sri Ramana Maharishi expressed this beautifully, and we have discussed this earlier also actually in a poem. And there is a beautiful story behind it also, that one of his disciples, he was sitting in front of Swamiji during a meditation time, calm time. And then he wrote on a piece of paper, Hridaya Guhara Madhya. And then he was trying to expand it, but now the thoughts were not coming. In between, he had to go out and complete an errand. And he comes back and he says that Swamiji, Ramana Maharishiji has completed the poem. And he has written it beautifully. What he wrote was Hridaya Guhara Madhye. That means in the core of the heart. Kevalam Brahma Matram. That pure Brahman, Tad Brahman, that supreme being, that effulgence in the core of the heart. Aham Maham Iti Sakshat. That voiceless, thoughtless sense of I, which is visible in the dark, which is perceived in the dark, that witnesses ceaselessly without a break whatever is going on. Atma Rupena Bhati, shines as the self. Hridi Visha Manasa, into that heart, into that core, you enter with your mind. Kevalo Majyatova, immersed in devotion. That's a necessity for us to be able to enter. Immersed in devotion. Pavana Chalana Rodhat, through the path of yoga. Atmanishto Bhavatam, abide yourself in the self. How beautifully he has said this. And that self, that core, that effulgence, Tad Dhama Paramam Mama, that is my supreme abode, or that is my supreme nature, effulgent nature. And Bhagavan says, Yad Gatva na nivartante, reaching which there is no return. Like we see these birds, right? The feeder is holding his hand like this and the bird is sitting there. And then it goes around, flies around all over, comes back to the hand of the feeder. There is another beautiful analogy. It's the Rama Bana, the arrow of Lord Sri Ram. The arrow of Lord Sri Ram darts to accomplish its mission, whatever the goal is. And it has Ram written on it. Every single arrow has Ram written on it. And then it comes back to Sri Ram. Hanuman actually, when he leapt across the ocean to go to Lanka, that time he equated himself with the Ramabana. He said, I like the Ramabana, I will dart across the ocean. I'll just speed through it. Hanuman could have also swum through it, but he chose to dart across, like the Ramabana. He said, I will always carry the name of the Lord Ram with me. Always, ever. And I will come back to his abode. Accomplish what I have to do and I'll come back. So that Dhamma, that supreme abode, once you reach, there is no returning anywhere else. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, and I quote, when pure camphor is lit, it leaves behind no residue. Everything else, when it burns, there is a residue. Pure camphor, no residue. When mentation is absolved, the distinction of I, you, and the object world completely vanish. Brahman, or the Shuddha Chaitanya, the effulgent pure consciousness, alone remains. Unquote. So what then is the Jivatma, and how does the conditioning of the Jivatma happen? Let's see that in the next verse.
Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke
Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke
Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha
Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha
Manashashtani Indriyani
Manashashtani Indriyani
Prakritisthani Karshati
Prakritisthani Karshati
ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूत सनातनः मनषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति.
Sanatanaha, an eternal amshaha, portion, part, mama, of me, iva, surely, jiva bhutaha, having become the bonded self, jiva loke, in the world of life, in samsara, prakriti sthani, abiding in prakriti, karshati, attracts, indriyani, the sense organs, the 5 sense organs, manashasthani, with the mind as the 6th. An eternal portion or eternal part of myself, surely having become the bound self in the world of life, abiding in Prakriti, attracts the 5 sense organs with the mind as the 6th. So Bhagavan says, Sanatanaha Amsha Mama, an eternal part of me. Jiva Bhutaha Jiva Loke, becomes the bound self in the world of life. Karshati Manashastranindriyani, attracting the senses and the mind. Prakriti Sthani, abiding in Prakriti. So Kabir Das has said in a very beautiful, imitable style, that Kabir Das has. And I'm going to recite the Doha here. He says, Pani which mean payasi, Pani which mean payasi, Mohi suni suni avat hasi, Mohi suni suni avat hasi. घर में बस्तु घरी नहीं सूंझे, घर में बस्तु घरी नहीं सूंझे, बाहर खोजन जासी, मोही सुनी सुनी आवत हासी. मृग के नाभि मही कस्तूरी, मृग के नाभि माही कस्तूरी, बन बन खोजत वासी, मोही सुनी सुनी आवत हासी. आत्म ज्ञान बिना सब झूठा, आत्म ज्ञान बिना सब झूठा, क्या मथुरा क्या काशी, मोही सुनी सुनी आवत हासी. कहत कबीर सुनो भई साधो, कहत कबीर सुनो भई साधो, सहज मिले अविनाशी, मोही सुनी सुनी आवत हासी, मोही सुनी सुनी आवत हासी. Beautiful Doha of Kabir. He says, it makes me laugh to think that the fish in the water thirsts for a drink. From forest to forest he sadly roams in search of the jewel lying at home. It makes me laugh to think that a musk deer is seeking that very fragrance which emanates from him. Without the knowledge of the self, what is the use, O pilgrim, at Mathura or Kashi to go looking for him? What a beautiful couplet. A Jivatman is an eternal part of the Paramatman, and through ignorance gets bound to Prakriti and attracts the senses and the mind intellect, like Bhagavan has said. And this Jivatman is in the world of the Jivas, the Jiva Loke. As long as it delights in satiation of the body, mind, and intellect, the sense organs, organs of actions, the mind, and the intellect. As long as this Jivatman is feeling happy and feeling satisfied, feeling fulfilled, or believing to be fulfilled because it is samsara, in this fulfillment or satiation of body, mind, and intellect, it is there in the Jiva Loka. And when through knowledge gives up this attachment to the body, mind, and intellect, this Jivatman becomes a yogi. The identification of the Jivatman with the Paramatman is directly proportional to the detachment of the Jivatman from the body, mind, and intellect. Because of this identification with Prakriti, the Jivatman is termed as the doer, and also as the Bhogin or the Bhokta, the one who enjoys. The doer, the agent, and the receiver, the enjoyer. And this Jivatman goes through fundamentally 3 states of existence: the deep sleep state, the dream state, and the waking state. In, in the deep sleep state, the entire BMI is inert. It is sleeping. The Jiva itself is resting. In the dream state, the body is sleeping, but the mind and intellect is working. The Jiva experiences. It is experiencing whatever is going on in the dream. That experience happens through the mind and intellect. Experience of objects, experience of senses, feeling, emotion, everything is a projection of the state of the mind in the state, not the perception of the senses. And in the waking state, the entire BMI, body, mind, and intellect is active. Everything is active. Perception is through the senses is happening, and perception through projection of the mind is also happening. Both are happening. Attached to samsara and attached to karma. And this process goes on for days, hours and days and weeks and months and years and decades. On and on and on and on and on. And then the karma for the Jivatma in that particular body comes to an end. And when that happens, the Jiva takes leave and it goes. Let's see that in the next verse.
Shariram yadavapnoti
Shariram yadavapnoti
yachyapyutkramatishvaraha
yachapyukramatishvaraha
gृहीत्वैतानि संयाति
गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति
वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्
वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्
शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्.
Yada, when Ishvaraha, the Lord, Shariram, of the body, Apnoti, obtains it, and Cha, also Api, when Yacha, Yad, Utkrama means leaves it, when it obtains it and when it leaves it. Grihitva takes along. Itani, these. Samyati, and goes. Just as Iva, Vayuhu, the wind. Gandha, the scent. Ashayat, from its place. When the Lord of the body, Ishvara here is the Lord or the commander of the body, the Jivatma. That is what is being referred to here. Ishvara is not Bhagavan. That Ishvara, the Lord of the body, when it obtains the body and when it leaves the body, it takes and goes with it. Takes with it and goes. Just as the wind takes the scents from their places. The Jivatman is called Lord because of its lordship over the body, mind and intellect. We all know that, right? The Jivatma rules our body, mind and intellect. Through our experience, we know that. That is why it is called the Lord of the body. And just like a magician who spreads out all his things, all the equipment, performs a beautiful magic show, and then packs up everything, goes to another location, spreads out all his equipment, and performs another magic show. Similarly, the Jivatman acquires a body, spreads out all the senses and organs of action, and then at death gathers everything, goes to another body, and again spreads out at the other birth. And Bhagavan gives an example. Just like the wind, which is by itself smellless, there is no smell in the wind, but it acquires the scent from the flowers or a perfume bottle or whatever it may be, and then it wafts through the air and you can sense it, and then over a period of time relinquishes the scent. That is how the Jivatman also acquires and goes. And what does the Jivatman do when he acquires these? What is these? The senses primarily, organs of senses, organs of action, and so on. The body, mind, and intellect. What does it do? We'll see in the next verse.
Shotram chakshuspashanam cha
Shrotram chakshuspashanam cha
rasanam granameva cha
rasanam granameva cha
adhisthaya manaschayam
adhisthaya manaschayam
vishayanupasevate.
vishayanupasevate.
Shrotram chakshuspashanam cha rasanam granameva cha adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate.
Adhisthaya, presiding over. Shrotram, the ear. Chakshuhu, the eye. Sparshanam, the organ of touch. Rasanam, the organ of taste. Cha, and Granam, the organ of smell. And even Evacha, and even Manaha, the mind. Ayam, it. Upasevate, experiences, enjoys. Vishayan, the objects of senses. Presiding over the faculties of hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, and smelling, and even the mind, it experiences the objects of senses. The five senses serve as the messengers for us. Or actually, they serve as the messenger for the Lord of the body mind. So us is also okay actually. Because when we refer to us, when I say us, when I say me, I am referring to the Jivatman, not my, they serve as the messenger to the Jivatman that is inside me. And its interaction with the surrounding environment. And all this is so interesting. We'll just take a minute to see it. The faculty of hearing or the ear, it perceives sound, which is the adjunct of space. By the way, we have seen all of this in quite in detail earlier. The eye or the faculty of sight that, basically functions to bring the message of what? Light and form. We perceive light and we perceive form through the eye, which is nothing but the adjunct of fire. The sense of touch, which is the adjunct of air, that pervades all over our body through the faculty, which is the skin. The faculty of taste is the tongue, which is the adjunct of water. And the faculty of smell is the nose, the adjunct of the earth. And the mind is the interpreter of all the messages that comes through these five sense organs, brought in by the senses. Remember the input, process, output model that we saw very much in the beginning. And then in this verse, you will notice one additional cha, and. That additional and indicates the karmendriyas and the pranas. They also do these functions. The swaprakasha consciousness, the self-lit consciousness, does not really fall on any, like a torchlight falls on the external object. Okay, this does not fall on any external object as an illuminating agent. It's not an agency. Rather, it is this pure light of consciousness that is reflected within, in the mind and intellect, as knowledge. And that creates awareness. And that awareness is what helps us understand, perceive, understand, and also interact with this object world around us, as well as the quote-unquote non-objects also. So my daughter Varshini, she has this fantastic capacity of neither seeing nor hearing someone who's right in front of her, okay? Bang in front of her, talking to her, addressing her name, and this girl will be in her own sweet world. Her retina has registered this individual. Her eardrums have vibrated by the sound of her name and other words also, but she neither sees nor hears. That's because her conscious mind is turned elsewhere. This happens to all of us, by the way. I chose Varshini because it happens to her a lot more often than all others that I have seen. It happens to us all the time. So that awareness, that conscious awareness, that is what directs our perception and our interaction. So if this quote unquote pure consciousness is so perfect, and it is also eternal, and it is innately present, it is there throughout our own existence, it is there in every single experience of ours as a human being, then how is it that people who are living through vivid, real experiences at every moment of their lives, they fail to recognize this divine presence? They do not see it, which is there at all times and everywhere. Why is it that people fail to recognize? That Bhagavan talks about in the next verse.
Utkramantam sthitam vapi
Utkramantam sthitam vapi
Punjanam va gunanvitam
Bhunjanam va gunanvitam
Vimudhananupashyanti
Vimudhananupashyanti
Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha
Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha.
Utkramantam sthitam vapi Punjanam va gunanvitam Vimudhananupashyanti Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha.
Vimudha, the deluded, na, not. Anupashyati, understand. Utkramantam, the departing. Va, or sthitam, staying, the staying. Va, or api, also. Bhunjanam, experiencing. Gunanvitam, combined with the gunas. Jnana chakshushaha, on the other hand, those with the eye of knowledge. Jnana chakshushaha. Chakshushaha, eye. Jnana, knowledge. Pashyanti, they see, they understand. The deluded do not understand the departing or the staying, or also experiencing combined with the gunas. The reference is to the self. The self is departing, the self is staying, and when it is staying, it is experiences with the combination, with its attachment to the gunas, the self is experiencing. And the deluded, they neither understand the self departing, they neither understand the self staying, they neither understand the self experiencing in combination with the gunas. Those with the eye of knowledge, they understand this magical presence within us, the awareness of identity when in total darkness, the intuitive thoughts, which then create, unbelievable success, unbelievable results, unbelievable experience. Beyond us, which is yet within. Some people have all of this, some people do not. Don't we see it all around us? Those who do not, they are designated as Vimudha. They are designated as deluded because of their lack of awareness of the self, which is the foremost factor within them. That is why they are deluded. It is the biggest factor within them. It's so obvious, but they do not see it. That is why they are deluded. Too involved. And why does this happen? Because they are too involved. Too involved with what? Too involved with the functioning of the senses. Too involved with the functioning of the organs of action. Too involved with the mind perceiving everything around in the samsara. The intellect judging everything around and making assumptions. So involved in this body, mind, and intellect and the experiences with this temporary existence, they are so deeply involved that they miss out on their own supreme worth and the profound possibilities that this supreme worth of this existence has for them. So they miss the bus. They miss the bus or they miss the train. Not even seeing this, they completely miss out on the self getting combined with the respective gunas and experiencing the resultant happenings. See, the beauty of experiencing this world, knowing what is happening, is so much better than just going on, we know that and we experience that in all our world, right? Just being there and seeing versus relishing what's going on. That is the difference. When you link it to that deep self within, you actually understand. And that's what Bhagavan says, Bhunjanam va gunanvitam. They do not get that, they miss it. Nor do they understand the self that is staying in the body or departing. Utkramantam sthitam vapi. So that is why when the self comes into the body, super enjoyment. When the self leaves the body, super dejection. Because they don't understand it. Cognition of the self alone is real cognition. That is what cognition is. And that is possible only to those who have this faculty or this eye of wisdom, the Jnana Chakshusha. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, and I quote, pillows vary in their pillows, cushions, they vary in their external appearances. Some are soft, some are hard. Some are of blue color, green color, multicolor and different colors and so on. But the stuff inside them is the same silk cotton. Similarly, some people are fair, others are dark. Some are short, others are tall. Some understand, some don't. Still, the same self resides in all their hearts, unquote. And how does one obtain this eye of wisdom? That Bhagavan covers in the next verse.
Yatanto yoginaschainam
Yatanto yoginaschainam
pasyantyatmanyavasthitam
pasyantyatmanyavasthitam
yatantopyakritatmanaha
Yatantopyakritatmanaha
nainam
Nainam
pashyantyachetasaha
pasyantyachetasaha
yatanto yoginaschainam pasyantyatmanyavasthitam yatantopyakritatmanaha nainam pasyantyachetasaha.
Yatanto, the striving, yoginaha, the yogin, the seekers. Pashyanti, behold, they see. Inam, it. It means the self. Vasthitam, established. Atmani, in their own selves, in themselves. Api, but. Akritatmanaha, the unrefined. Cha, and achetasaha, the unintelligent. Yatantaha, striving, even though striving. Na, not. Pashyanti, see. Inam, this. So the striving seekers, the yogins, see it established in themselves. But the unrefined, devoid of intelligence, though they are striving, they do not see it. See, the act of striving is common to both the yogi and the quote-unquote non-yogi. One who is a yogi and one who is not a yogi, the act of striving is common to both of them. We are talking about spiritual seekers. We are not talking about the tamasic people who are not striving. Okay, these are spiritual seekers. But among the spiritual seekers, the yogi and the non-yogi, both of them are striving. Nothing can be achieved without that striving, without that effort. Then what is the difference between the two? Akritatmano cha achetasaha, the unrefined and the unintelligent. The person's efforts are purely selfish. They think they are spiritually striving, but their efforts are purely selfish. Not only that, egoistic, full of pride, full of conceit. We see a lot of these spiritual strivers around us also, by the way. We should have the capacity to recognize when we see that. This kind of a person, even if that person is making efforts in the spiritual arena, still does not develop the eye of wisdom, the Jnana Chakshusha. Whereas the yoginaha, the yogi, that person on the other hand, devoted, completely devotes one's own existence as well as one's activities. The existence, all of the striving, all of that is devoted to Bhagavan. Ishwararpana buddhi, prasada buddhi. It is whatever is being done for the higher. This yogi, through the act of surrender, through the attitude of surrender, has acquired a purified mind. And when this person indulges in whatever, whether it is karma, whether it is jnana, whether it is dhyana, whether it is bhakti, whatever it may be, this kind of an indulgence becomes yoga. For this person, that karma is karma yoga, that jnana is jnana yoga, that dhyana is dhyana yoga, that bhakti is bhakti yoga. Doing it for selfish purpose, just doing it for the heck of it, you are just doing action. It's not yoga. Yoga is when you devote it to the higher. And that then results in a purified mind, intellect. Chitta Shuddhi. Then it leads to Chitta Ekagrata. And that leads to the Yogina. And that is the person who is performing true yoga. Such a person performs all earthly duties to perfection, viewing them as service to the Lord, to Bhagavan. And we can see, it's obvious, as much as it is obvious to recognize the non-yogi, it is obvious to recognize the yogi also. Not only exemplary in terms of acceptance, also exemplary in terms of self-control. And easily subordinates one's own quote-unquote will to the will of the Bhagavan, to the will of the Supreme. Such a person develops the eye of wisdom. So what has Bhagavan done so far? He has described the self as number one, self-illuminating, swaprakasha, and the self as a state of non-return. Once you go there, na nivartante, and also as a part of his own self. How can these yogis with jnana chakshusha, with this eye of wisdom, how can they see him? So Bhagavan will now describe his eminence in the next 4 verses. And he basically describes it as the all-illuminating light of consciousness. And then in the following, each of these in 1 verse. And then in the next verse, all-sustaining life. And then the subjective warmth of life, which is within the living organ. We will find that warmth in all living organisms, that warmth. And then as the one seated in every core, every heart. So we will go through the first 3 in this satsang, one by one. So we'll go to verse 12.
Yadadityagatam tejaha
Yadadityagatam tejaha
jagadbhasayate khilam
jagadbhasayate kilam
yachandramasi yacchagnau
yachandramasi yacchagnau
tattejo vidhi mamakam
tattejo vidhi mamakam
yadadityagatam tejaha jagadbhasayate khilam yachandramasi yacchagnau tattejo vidhi mamakam.
Tejaha, the effulgence, yad, which, aditya gatam, residing in the sun, bhasayate, illumines, akhilam, the whole, jagat, world, yad, which, chandramasi, in the moon, cha, and yat, which, agnau, in the fire, vidhi, no, tat, that, tejaha, effulgence, mamakam, to be mine. The effulgence residing in the sun illumines the whole world. That effulgence which residing in the sun illumines the whole world, which is in the moon and in the fire. Know that effulgence to be mine. That light in that bulb, the heat in the furnace, the motion in the fan, all of these, they are all different manifestations because the equipment is different. In the first case, it is the light because the bulb is the equipment. The second case is heat because the furnace is the equipment. And in the third, it is movement because fan is the equipment. But the energy behind these 3, that is the same. It is electricity. Similarly, consciousness expressed through the sun manifests as sunlight. Consciousness expressed through moon manifests as moonlight. And consciousness expressed through fire manifests as light of the fire. So this infinite, it manifests in varied, glorious expressions, manifestations. Remember Vibhutis? We went through all of those, right? Those glorious manifestations. The physical aspect, the sun, the moon, the fire, is empowered by the subtle aspect, which is the light, which in turn is empowered by the consciousness. When light reflects from a mirror, it is brighter than when light reflects from wood. Light reflects from wood also. You see, especially if it is glossy wood, you see it shining. If it is matte finish wood, you will not see it shining, but you will still see the light reflecting. So it's all different based on the equipment. Similarly, the mind-intellect equipment of one person understanding is different from the mind-intellect equipment of another. Bhagavan says that all manifestations, irrespective of what it is, and irrespective of the degree of the manifestation, all of them are mine. And in addition to being the all-illuminating light of consciousness, Atma Chaitanya, it is the all-sustaining life, the life of all lives. That Bhagavan says in the next verse. Gama.
Gama vishya cha bhutani.
Gama vishya cha bhutani.
Dharayamyaham ojasa.
Dharayamyaham ojasa.
Pushnami chaushadhi sarvaha.
Pushnami chaushadhi sarvaha.
Somo bhutva rasatmakaha.
Somo bhutva rasatmakaha.
Gama vishya cha bhutani. Dharayamyaham ojasa. Pushnami chaushadhi sarvaha. Somo bhutva rasatmakaha.
Avishya means avishya, permeating, going through. Gama, the earth. Aham, I. Dharayam, support. Bhutani, all beings. Ojasa, by my energy. Cha, and Bhutva, having become. Rasatmakaha, lively. Somo, the moon or juice. We'll come to that later. Pushnami, I nourish. Sarvaha, all. Aushadhi, herbs. Permeating the earth, I support all beings by my energy. And having become the lively moon or the juice of nectar, as you will, I nourish all herbs. See, we all know, it's obvious and we all see it around us, that one form of energy transforms into another form. Science has made use of this fact to harness energy and for the benefit of human beings. All of these nature's resources, amazingly well humankind has done that. But the manifest energy in its original form that emanates from Bhagavan is called Ojas. That Ojas, that energy is what pervades the entire universe and holds it together, holds it intact. All beings and objects get their sustenance from that energy. The life energy comes in one form from the sun, another form from the moon, earth, fire, whatever the element through which it comes. But the life energy is the same life energy. Bhagavan used the word somo. Somo can be interpreted either as the moon or as the juice of nectar, somarasa. Either way, the herbs in the plant kingdom find nourishment from the soma. See, life on earth would be very different without this moon, which is our natural satellite. The rising and the setting of the moon on a daily basis and the monthly waning and waxing of the moon, we all know that it influences the tidal waves in the ocean and how important the tidal waves are for humanity, for the earth to exist, and how crucial it is to life. In addition to that, this moon also affects the flow of water through plants. Sap moves more vigorously during the waxing phase, when the moon is growing from small to big, when it is becoming full moon, and slows down the sap, the flow of water through the plant slows down when the moon waves into a crescent, wanes into a crescent. And Bhagavan says that all life supporting energy comes from Paramatma. I mean, today I had this, I mean, small little things, you know, if you link it to this, it's so exhilarating, you know, small little things. See, what was happening today was, I had a meeting at 2:30, and normally I had a meeting at 2:30, and normally, you know, nowadays in the last 2 years or 2.5 years, earlier I never used to sleep in the afternoon. But in the last 2.5 years, I like to take a 10-15 minute nap. What do you mean I like? That tamas just comes. Okay, it's not whether I like or not. It just becomes tamasic, and it happens 8 out of 10 times. Okay, 8 out of 10 days that happens in the afternoon. And today, what happened? I woke up at 4 o'clock. This jet lag thing, right? I woke up around 3:30, 4ish, and I was thinking, if I have a meeting at 2:30, how am I going to, you know, do satsang? I need that little bit of energy before I, you know, get rajasic and sattvic, right? You need that tamas before that happens. So I was thinking about it, and magically, you know, see how the events unfold. I woke up at 3:34 today, and at about 6:30 or so, I felt like exercising, so I exercised for 1 hour. Now, these two, when it was happening, I never realized why it was happening. But because of that, never in my life, you know, do I feel today at around noon, I just had that, that tamasic tamas overpowered me at noon, which I can't even remember when it happened, right? So there's quote unquote energy for the satsang. It just happened at 12 o'clock, I got my 15-minute nap. Normally, it is always after lunch, but today, probably because of waking up at 3:30 and then exercising, it just happened earlier. So I was just, it was wonderment for me. You know, it may not be for you, but you will have these kind of wonderments in your own life. Please don't miss out on those, because they are so beautiful. You know, how just small little things fall in place. It's so crazy. All life supporting energy comes from that Paramatma. And then Bhagavan continues.
Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva.
Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva.
Praninam Dehamashritah.
Praninam Dehamashritah.
Pranapana Samayuktah.
Pranapana Samayuktah.
Pachamyannam Chaturvidham.
Pachamyannam Chaturvidham.
Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva. Praninam Dehamashritah. Pranapana Samayuktah. Pachamyannam Chaturvidham.
So aham, I, ashrita function, deham, in the bodies, praninam, of living beings. Pranapana samayuktaha, associated with prana and apana. Pachami, I digest. Annam, food. Chaturvidam, fourfold. Having become the digestive fire, I function in the bodies of beings, and associated with prana and apana, I digest the fourfold food. The energy which remains in bodies and the bodies of beings as the warmth that we feel, right? And that aids in digestion, the process of digestion. That is called Vaishvanaraha. The fire is also known as Jataragini, or the gastric fire. Now, fire needs, we all know that fire needs that air to exist and to function. This digestive fire is tended to by the pranapana, which is the constant breathing in and breathing out. We have also seen pranapana in detail earlier. Okay. Pranapana samayuktaha. And with this aid of this prana and apana, this warmth, this digestive fire helps us digest the 4 types of food. Chaturvidam. 4 types of food are basically not 4 types of food. Food that is partaken in 4 different ways. In vidam, chatur vidam. how you consume the food in 4 different ways. Food can be consumed in 4 different ways. Lehyam. Lehyam is licking. Choshyam or sucking. Bhakshyam or masticating, chewing. And bhojyam or gulping or swallowing. These are the 4 ways in which food is taken in. And Bhagavan says that I become the warmth and enable this process. How beautiful this is. So Bhagavan is saying that he is whatever happens all around us, everything. After explaining how this all-encompassing energy, he being that energy, drives life process, Bhagavan now dives into the core. And then after that, he will talk about his absoluteness. So we move from the day in and day out to the absolute. First, we go into the core and then the absolute. We will see both in the next satsang. Hari Om. Thank you, Shri Krishna.
We'll repeat today's verses.
Yeah.
Chapter 15, 6 to 14. Na tadbhasayate suryah, na shashanko na pavakaha, yadgatva na nivartante, tadbhama paramam mama, mamaivamsho jivaloki, jivabhuta sanatanaha, manashashtanindriyani, prakristani karshati, sharidam yadavapnoti, यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात् श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्पर्शनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्वितं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः यदन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्त्यात्मन्यवस्थितं यदन्तोऽप्यकृतात्मानः नैनं पश्यन्त्यचेतसः यदादित्यगतं तेजः जगद्भासयतेऽखिलं यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो विद्धि मामकम् गामाविश्य च भूतानि धारयाम्यहमूर्जसा पुष्णामि चौषधी सर्वाः सोमो भूत्वा रसात्मकः अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितः प्राणापानसमायुक्तः पचाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधम् ॐ असतो मा सद्गमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ
Hari Om. Thank you. You are reciting Amrita. Not bad. Amrita was also reciting here. Good.
I have a question. Yeah. Okay, this is from verse 7. That's when I wrote down. And probably part of it is in a way clear, but then I'll go ahead and ask. So you mentioned that through knowing of self and giving up on the attachments of samsara, a person eventually becomes a yogi. My question here is, as long as a person is bound in any relationship or performing a duty or working towards a goal, there will always be this sense of expectation or attachment. At what point does it become feasible or even possible to lose the attachment? Because every such goal or a relationship comes with a certain bond.
At what point does it give up? What was the question?
No,
what is the final question?
at what point does it become feasible or even possible to lose the attachment? Because even however, I would say not so close relationships, or even could be uh, uh, an acquaintance, it comes with a certain expectation or a certain bond, or I really don't know how to term it. But then,
Yeah, I think I hear you. Yeah. So see, that's the beauty of this, right? Bhagavan is actually telling us a methodology of how to perform you use the words performing duty, you use the word being in a relationship, you use the word, the relationship or the duty leads to attachment. Bhagavan is telling us the way how you can continue to be in a relationship, how you can continue to do your duties without being attached. Right? He is not saying the yogi doesn't continue to live in this world. The yogi continues to live in this world. That is, earlier also we talked about this, that sense of detached involvement. That is what I had called it at that time. So the involvement doesn't go away anywhere. What goes away is this feeling of selfish gain out of whatever it may be, whether it is performing duty, I'm doing it. So the difference between the yogi and the quote unquote non-yogi, what is it? That difference we saw today also, right? It is just that the non-yogi, even though pursuing spirituality, forget about worldly aspects. You're talking about worldly aspects, duties in the world, being attached in relationships and so on. Even once you graduate to the level of, pursuing spiritual activities, right? Even there, here Bhagavan is saying that one who does that with a selfish approach, with a deceited kind of a thought process inside, right? That person is not a yogi. Whereas one who does activities dedicating it to Lord. You want to have a relationship, have the relationship. Can you have it continuing and dedicating it to the Lord? Can you do that? So can Yudhishthira go and play dice, gamble, and dedicate it to Lord Krishna? Either he will do it, in which case it is a yogic activity, or because he is thinking of Lord Krishna, he will not play that dice. One of the two will happen. All Bhagavan is saying is, you please dedicate it to the higher. The outcome, you will figure out what will happen. If you dedicate it to the higher, then you continue to do it. In all likelihood, it will be a pure activity. And if you dedicate it to the higher and you are not able to do it, then in all likelihood, that was not meant anyway. That is the way that Bhagavan is teaching us. That is the growth. When we say, when you trim the branches, right? When you do that trimming activity, what is it called? What's the word? Pruning. So we can prune our actions, we can prune our thoughts, we can prune our behavior, which will help us grow and make better people, become a better person. And yet continue to perform our duties. See, after all this Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is going to go do what? Fight a war.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Rama.
Why is that fig tree, Ashtata tree, inverted? The logic behind being, I know the roots is a Brahman, and so it has to be higher up. But what was wrong if it was in a normal position? I mean, normal tree.
So see, Bhagavan is just using an analogy. What he's saying is, you get the sap, you get the energy from the root. And he is saying that the supreme is above and the samsara is below. Similarly, in the inverted tree, the roots are above and the branches are below.
So that is just an analogy. And another one on today's lecture, which you gave, you said when the body crumbles and dies, the karma goes along with the body. This body does not have. Does it mean it goes along with the jivatma? Maybe even the mind, and the karma, the jivatma carries out with itself. Because the karma, when you come back again in another body, the same karma has to continue. the fruits of the karma, whatever, the palan of the karma has to continue. So does it exit the body along with the Jivatma?
So,
Did you get my question?
Yeah, I did. Actually, this is, Rama, you should resolve this. Sit down and maybe write it. And because this has come again and again in your mind in various ways throughout our satsanga. In different contexts, you have brought the same question again and again. Actually,
because I'm not satisfied with the answer. Maybe that is why.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possible. So you have to resolve that. See, essentially, karma. We talked about karma. Karma as prarabdha. Okay, prarabdha. So we all have karma. So see, we have a total portfolio of all our karma. Like I use the financial analogy. We have an entire financial portfolio. Out of that, part of it matures, which is the karma for this life. That is called prarabdha. This life is there till that prarabdha gets exhausted. But our portfolio has not got exhausted. That is still there. Till it gets exhausted, the jiva will go from one body to another body. That was your question right now.
Yeah, where is it stored? It is stored in the jiva.
It is stored in the jivatma. Yeah.
Does the mind
Not
have any?
Jiva
mind
is
stored there, or mind is not connected with this?
Mind is for the particular jiva. Mind is for the particular incarnation, if I may use that word, by the way. Okay, for mind the particular birth.
It's only the karma part that goes. It's not the mind. Mind stays.
Yes.
So the next thing gets a different completely.
The body, mind, and intellect remains. The Atma goes.
Atma goes along with the karma. Along with the
jiva,
karma balance or whatever.
The jiva remains. The jivatma has exhausted the prarabdha which was connected to the jiva. And then it goes, picks up the remaining prarabdha and goes to another body.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I hope I would ask you the same question again.
No. You must because that is how you will. This is obviously, it's very interesting, by the way. And it is true, it happens to all of us. There is one thing, when we are pursuing the spiritual path, there will be one or two things which will keep coming up in different ways. And that is exactly what we have to resolve. So if you don't ask, then you will not resolve. In fact, I would rather encourage you should spend your own personal time to, maybe write it down. Writing helps a lot, actually, I can tell you.
Okay. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you had a good time in USA.
Oh, yes, absolutely. The only thing is I got COVID.
My son came from there and he got COVID here. You the reverse way.
Yeah, I went there and got it. So I'm with foreign antibodies. People bring all kinds of things. I brought antibodies.
Thank you very much.
But I'm going again on July 25th.
Srini, did you use the word ojas?
Yes, ojas, energy.
Okay. What is it? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
Yeah, I was not sure if I understood properly the word.
We see energy all around us. We see one form of energy transforming into another form of energy. And I use the example of human beings, science helping us harness it and make use of it. Like electricity is there, but we have harnessed electricity to create so much, utility for us. That energy which belongs to the Paramatman, that then runs everything that we saw today. So many things Bhagavan described, right? Whether it is digesting food, whether it is, whatever, let's not go through all of that he described today. That initial or that big energy source that is behind everything, that ruling energy source, that is called ojas. That ruling energy.
It's so interesting. Yeah. For me, it sounds today like a lecture on Ayurveda, the ojas is such an important thing in Ayurveda. This what gives vitality and strength for the body. And, and you were talking about Vajratara, Agni, and yeah, so interesting how everything is interconnected.
Ayurveda, all of this has actually, Ayurveda itself has come from our Upanishads, right? From Bhagavad Gita, from Upanishads. These are the source for Ayurveda. Yoga, everything, the source of all of that are these scriptures. That is where they've been first described. So yes, in fact, if you go, if you read Vedanta, entire Ayurveda is covered, everything. Bhagavan, yes, Bhagavan doesn't cover in detail, but he refers to okay, anything else? Any other thought or comments or questions? Okay, then Hari Om, we will meet next Saturday. Next Saturday, we will complete chapter 15. Thank you, Hari Om.